So you want to buy a bass guitar, but you don't want to break the bank. But you also need to get a decent axe, because at a certain point, having a crappy instrument is going to get in the way of your development. So what should you do? Find yourself a bass with upside. If it looks good, feels good, sounds good unplugged, probably got yourself a winner. At the end of the day, the way any guitar plays and sounds is going to come down to 5 parts: the strings, the electronics, the bridge, the neck, and the body. Strings are the primary source of sound on any stringed instrument. Ultimately, they are temporary and disposable by nature, whether you like to admit it to yourself or not. So whether it's a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 25 years, every string does have a lifespan. Maybe it's longer than yours, but at some point they are going to go. Sorry. Number 2 is the electronics, so pickups and pots. Now these are going to be a little harder to change than strings, obviously, because you need a screwdriver, a soldering iron, lots of time, and to take your instrument apart to change them. But they are going to be probably the most impactful upgrade you can make to an electric stringed instrument. All right, so neck and body can also be changed. With the neck, it's going to have the most impact on playability and feel, a little bit of tone, but I would say it's more of a tactile change. The body, once you start changing the body of the bass, aren't you just kind of putting all your elements in a new bass? So let's just call the body the frame of the car, and that's the car we're upgrading. So we'll leave the body out of this. So when you were buying a bass, if you bought something that looked good and sounded good, unplugged, then you've got the feel and the aesthetics kind of covered. So really, if you look at changing the guts, the electronics, the bridge, and the strings, then you're going to be able to take this cheapo thumper and turn it into a truly formidable groove machine. Now, don't let anyone ever tell you what to spend your money on. But for this, buy a Squier. Why Squier? Well, because they're built to Fender specs, and Fender basses are pretty much ubiquitous. So there's like an ocean full of parts that you can buy for these. Upgrades are easy, they look pretty great, and I've heard that the P in P bass stands for paid, which is what you get when you play one. Not a bad thing. So here I have a Squier Precision bass. This is one that typically comes in a cardboard box from a department store with a 15-watt amp and a guitar strap, and it's targeted at people who have never picked up a bass before. I found this one on Marketplace. I think I paid $350 Canadian for it, so that's like, what, $24.50 US? I wanted this bass in particular because I love the look of Sunburst instruments, especially with the black pickguard. And then my other P bass is a 60s style P bass without the bridge jazz pickup and flat wounds on it. So it's a much darker instrument by nature. I wanted something with a little more edge, a little more speed, a little more cut, because variety's the spice of life, and I like it spicy. Okay, so I did a light setup on this, nothing crazy. Just enough to basically fix the intonation issues, tighten it up so you guys can get a sense of how it sounds out of the box. So one of the things that I find about this thing is that the E string is very heavy and huge, but everything else is super thin. Right now, this is plugged directly into a Universal Audio Apollo, but I actually found the exact same thing when I took it on a gig recently. I had more volume presence punch than I wanted on the E string, and not nearly enough on the rest of the range of the instrument. That can't happen. And in general, the tone is fine-ish, but it's really nothing to write home about. So, let's give it a glow up. All right, so I first went to put the pots in. The pots, the new high quality pots, are way bigger than these old little mealy jobs. Look how tiny they are in these little baby pots. And the cavity underneath the pick guard was sized out for the baby pots. So I had to take a router to it. I got a little hasty. I was a little bit rammy with it. I could have taken my time and made more of a template. That probably would have been safer. But one of the nice things about getting a base on Marketplace for not a lot of money is that you're not taking power tools to a vintage instrument. If you took a little more time and were more patient than I was, you'd be fine. And hey, I wasn't that patient, and I'm still fine. Might hurt the resale value a bit, but what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna sell this bass anyway. It sounds awesome. Cool. So all in all, sounds great. One other note about this, actually we'll make two other notes. I mentioned before one of my criticisms of this bass was that the E string was like really in your face and then everything else kind of dropped off. I found that there was still kind of a bit of that issue when I first installed the Aguilar pickups, and it was actually a setup problem. The E string was just dropped way down. So I dealt with that. I adjusted the action so that it was more uniform across all four strings, and the problem went away. I didn't find it was as pronounced with the new pickups, but it was still there. So that's a setup problem. And then the other issue, when I was putting this in, the wiring that came with the pots, with the wiring kit, actually was inaccurate for the Aguilar pickups. There's phase incoherence if you wire the pickups white to white and black to black. So for the Jazz pickup, you actually reverse the leads. So that makes me wonder if maybe the wiring on these Squier pickups was incorrect, given that the other problem I had was the Jazz pickup undermining the P. Maybe this was wired in such a way that these two pickups were phase incoherent, you know, which, like, ultimately the tone is way better at the end of the day. The tone is miles beyond what these were giving me. So I still stand by the major upgrade in performance, but it'd be interesting to know if maybe these aren't as bad as they were showing, and that it was just an installation error, which is still kind of a problem given that this is how the bass came. It shouldn't come improperly configured. But one of these days I'm going to try putting these in another instrument, and I'll try reversing the wiring and seeing if maybe that causes the issue. But that's not a today thing, because we still have to address the bridge. This is going to be fun time number 2. We're going to take off this old Squier bridge and put on this. This is a hip shot bridge. This is called the Kick-Ass Bass Bridge. Kick-Ass 4 from Hipshot. This is roughly modeled after the Leo Kwan badass bridges from the 70s. From what I understand, those kind of gave rise to the high mass bass bridge. And what's great about it, 5 screws there match what's in this bridge already. So all I gotta do is take this bad boy off, put this bad boy on, make sure my ground wire is in place, and then do a setup. Okay, well, I am truly stoked. This thing is wicked. Given what we paid for this, it's amazing. It plays super well. It sounds incredible. And actually, the thing I really like that I was surprised about, and it still might get replaced eventually, but the neck is kind of killer. It doesn't have the gloss that you get on some of the classic Vives or even like the premium Fender basses. I'm not a big fan of the gloss finishes. I find them kind of slow, clunky to move around. I usually take a Scotch-Brite pad to them. This one's unfinished. And so, yeah, it's easy to move around it. And it feels good and it sounds fine. So, this is going to be my playing bass for a while. So, let's hear it. So all in, paid $350 for the bass, $350 for the pickups, $50 for the wiring kit, and might have been $20 for the knobs. So $770. Yeah, that's pretty good. $770 Canadian. So that's, what did I say? $63 US. Just joking, but it's a lot less. This still comes in way under the lowest level of Fender P bass that you can get. And I learned a lot about setup and guitar building in the process. Sounds like a lot of winning. Anyway, do one for yourself. You won't regret it. Happy playing.